NCD isolation facility open. Controller calls for citizens to follow SOE laws. And city police keeping cities safe.
This is National EMTV News with Jeremy Moggy.
Hello and thanks for joining me for Thursday's news. The COVID-19 Isolation Center in the National Capital District was today officially visited by the Governor of NCD and state ministers. The facility has a total of 76 beds for the mild and moderate stages of the COVID-19 virus. The severe cases will be referred to the Pomorsby General Hospital. The facility will have access to the whole Bisini Sports Precinct if there is a severe outbreak. The nearby sporting fields can also be used to set up more COVID-19 wards.
The home of netball in Papua New Guinea, now the control room for COVID-19 isolation. Government ministers, stakeholders and media were given a tour of the new COVID-19 isolation facility at the Rita Flynn netball courts. The facility itself a milestone, the first to be set up in the country, complete with a swabbing deck to sample symptoms of the virus, to a mini emergency area where the deteriorating state of COVID-19 patients can be revived by the emergency team en route to isolation. Inside the netball complex, beds of all the 3 stages of the virus infection, the mild, moderate and the severe. But for the meantime, severe patients will be directed to the Port Moresby General Hospital.
When you get your positive result, diagnosed positive COVID-19, you will be transported into here. And according to your severity, you will be placed on beds. First section that you're all standing in is the mild section. That's currently the beds that you see there, around 20 beds. Behind me is the moderate, and beyond that is the severe. Once we get the severe meeting international requirements, we can. For now, all our severe cases will be transported to POM General Hospital and be catered for there.
Dr. Gary No, manager of the isolation facility, says they will cater for all patients from small children to the elderly and even women in labor. Dr. Gary No says they will not only be utilizing the Rita Flynn facility, which has 76 beds, but they will also be making use of the whole Bisini precinct, which includes the softball field, the rugby union field and the Bisini soccer grounds.
We are also connected to several ovals from here. We have the softball oval, we have the Aussie Rules oval, we have the cricket oval, we have the lawn bowls, touch rugby and rugby union. All have structures built into place, sanitation, water, electricity lines connected. We can put a helipad in there to bring in heavy tented structures and all of that we need to. If we need to call in international assistance, they will have a space to put down their field hospitals and that.
It will be no easy feat managing a facility like this during its peak hours. Although there are doctors and nurses along with community health workers on site, Dr. No says they will need all the help they can get.
The skeleton cover for the day as we are now is 13 doctors, 20 nurses and 20 CHWs to start off with. We are appealing for HCOs to come and join the team and any other nurses to volunteer and come and join the team as well. We are most welcome. This is the year of the nurse. This is a humanitarian outreach. If you feel like you want to respond, we are most welcome.
But there is one critical aspect that will need to be addressed, and that is the availability of ventilation machines, critical for breathing, especially for patients infected with the virus. Dr. No says they need more of them on standby.
The limited number of ventilators are in POM General Hospital, and that's a 6-bed facility already. Outside of that, if we are trying to create an ICU, we are really down. So right now we have 4 transport ventilators and 1 I-vent that's on standby now. So that I-vent is a ward ventilator, and transport ventilators are Oxylog 3000s. So that we have 5 in the facility. But of course, what we need, God willing, we'll never need them. But we're going to need over 20 just on standby.
Felix Sukina, National EMTV News.
The NCD COVID-19 task force team will have to consider a mass burial plan, a measure being taken by other countries as the death toll continues to rise worldwide. As part of its efforts to contain the COVID-19 virus, an isolation center was established by NCD, but going forward, a mass burial plan is also important.
The death toll of the COVID-19 virus is rising worldwide. For Papua New Guinea, there have been only 2 reported cases so far, with both being stabilized. But at the rate of spread in other countries and the death toll reaching new highs each day, Papua New Guinea will eventually need a proactive approach to the matter of disposing the dead victims of the virus. Mass burials are something that countries with huge death tolls are doing. For the National Capital District, Governor Powers Pakop says it is the next step to consider after the establishment of the isolation facility.
After this facility now, we start looking at those type of other boxes that we need to tick. We already started monitoring the morgues, all the funeral homes in the city. And what I can report up to now is that the statistics is almost normal in the sense that this time last year, it's the statistic is almost the same. There's not a lot of pressure yet on, burial sites, but I think the national government also has authorized and cremation. And their facility is already being set up for cremation.
Governor Pakop says 9 Mile Cemetery is running out of space and repatriating bodies is expensive. But if worse comes to worse, they are under emergency orders and will acquire more land for burial.
9 Mile, as I keep reminding us, is running out of space. Freighting bodies to our homes or place of origin for burial is a noble idea, it's a tradition, but it's very expensive exercise. We are under emergency powers and we will use emergency powers to secure land for that purpose if we do burial. Yes.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
State of Emergency Controller David Manning has appealed to the public to strictly observe laws of the state of emergency. Manning emphasized social distancing, restrictions on large gatherings, and urged people to stay at home. In total, 13 emergency orders have been issued since the SOE began to assist the whole of government response to COVID-19.
With the public transport ceasing operation as of yesterday, the SOE controller says this is to promote the COVID-19 health safety message and basically to stop the spread. Manning says it is equally important for individuals to be at home and limit movement. He says people must practice social distancing.
As we are rapidly approaching one of the most significant events of the Christian calendar, it is equally important to encourage our people to stay at home. It is proven that social distancing is key to stopping the spread, and we cannot risk big gatherings at this time.
As far as emergency orders are concerned, a total of 13 were announced by the controller since the SOE. With the initial 14-day lockdown elapsed, a review has been undertaken by authorities. Controller Manning says this was necessary. He announced the following strategies.
Again, as we approach the end of the first week of the 2-month extension of the SOE, we have reviewed the emergency orders issued under the initial 14-day nationwide lockdown and made the necessary revocations and issuance of new emergency orders to allow us to progress under the following strategies. And they are continued enforcement and enhanced border security, economic recovery and sustainability, and of course a return to the new normal.
While the ban on domestic air travel is lifted, certain ports have yet to finalize approval. Manning says a team is working over the Easter to ensure a system is in place with strict measures for airline companies and passengers. He says by next Tuesday, approval for domestic travel will commence.
This is a process that we have not taken lightly, and therefore due diligence has been observed throughout this whole process. I have a team working on this now and over the Easter weekend to have the system up and running by Tuesday, April 14th. So by next Tuesday, anyone who wishes to travel domestically can apply for approval online on the COVID-19 webpage. Approval will be given should you meet all the strict guidelines we will have in place to protect you from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Jack Lapava Jr., National EMTV News.
Testing results from 167 persons of interest in the Suki and Milawa area of Western Province have come back negative for COVID-19. These persons of interest showed flu-like symptoms after they returned to Papua New Guinea from trading in Indonesia. With West Papua reporting its first COVID-19 death, PNG authorities have increased focus at the border.
There was a concern that in the potential settings, there was raised that perhaps the border settings would have been also a very big potential risk. And so our SEDS teams have been sent to the border settings, border areas, to look at that. And all the tests that have been done in the border settings, there's about 167 tests that were done throughout the border settings of Vanimo, or West Sepik, East Sepik, as well as Western Province, have come back negative so far. And so we just want to, appreciate that at this point in time, there is that one positive person in East New Britain, and we continue to focus in dealing with this challenge so that it doesn't expand and continue on to spread to the rest of the country. Provinces have been stepping up, and I must thank the provinces, because in all the provinces, those that we have been able to communicate with, there's been work that's been done, and so the emergency response plans have been clear. That's the latest that we know. Everyone in the provinces have got their emergency response plans, but the key issue is for us to see how we step up with that and enable them to be effected so that they respond in kind. And the issues relating to preparation for the isolation ward, the quarantine facilities, that's work that's continuing to progress. And we know that in this matter, we now looking to where, especially in the rural settings and in the villages, some of those guest houses or settings that are available, we could look at how we could deal with that to enable either isolation or quarantine facilities be enabled. And I think
Prime Minister James Marape says comments made by Treasurer Ian Ling-Stuckey in relation to a misappropriation allegation involving the 23 million kina out of the total 45 million kina allocated for COVID-19 was taken out of context. The Prime Minister was responding to a news story where the Treasurer alleged that a large sum of the 23 million kina was spent on hire cars and media consultants. In the news story, the Treasurer also said he had advised the Prime Minister of the allegations and would not release the remaining 22 million kina if an audit is not conducted into the first 23 million. However, Marape this afternoon, when asked about these allegations, the Prime Minister provided an outline of the breakup of the 23 million kina.
From media proper, but from the social media perspective, that hire cars and other bills are being run. As I said, from the 23 million kina we gave. And let me repeat again, from information that I myself sourced, and by the way, in terms of procurement, the Office of Prime Minister, under my leadership, have made intervention. We will set up, and we're setting up with the Health Department and every agency is involved, a procurement protocol to ensure that procurements of goods and services in this COVID-19 operation is not spent elsewhere, but to proper expenditures that goes towards fighting COVID-19 in our country. So for the 23 million kina, let me repeat again. I said earlier, and if you care to write it properly, and I'll maybe pass this down, 16,748,000, 48 kina, 20 toya is still in the account. Of the 6.151 million that has been used, 4.2 million kina has gone to the 21 provincial center, and the 22nd is the special region of Bougainville. 200,000 kina went to HSIP parent account. Air Niugini was paid 1.5 million kina for all those disposals and travels that are happening at the moment. St. John Ambulance was paid 100,000 for the work that they're doing with us in the partnership thus far. And upgrading of Port Moresby General Hospital COVID-19 isolation ward but mostly being right in our face, received 150,228 kina 40 toya. And more business system for printing COVID-19 trust account checks, 1,423 kina. There's a health department, please supply our media this information so they know it's their money, it's public money. And I think from now on, this sort of reporting too, we will make to the media so everyone knows what is happening here. So that everyone is satisfied that whatever little money we're pulling through is not being wasted elsewhere, but is spent for the COVID-19 process.
Amidst the fear of COVID-19 in the country, Prime Minister James Marape has encouraged people to pray for God's protection this Easter. In his Easter message to the people, the Prime Minister said it is the prayer of Christians in the country that has helped protect the nation from this pandemic. He also challenged citizens not to take their health for granted this Easter long weekend.
In recent months, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused fear and panic among citizens, and it has posed a threat to the country's economy. In his Easter message to the people, Prime Minister James Marape challenged the people to continue to pray for the country.
Pray blo plenty of pasta na man na Mary long place and me whole country blimi coming up tete. And so while you pray long Papua New Guinea, me like give me also taking time out long this plus Saturday or Sabbath or long Sunday. Long house you stop, village you stop, church you stop, you lotu. You talk thank you, Lord God, long holy Papua New Guinea coming up tete.
The Prime Minister further stressed on the importance of Easter. He said PNG as a Christian country must continue to observe Easter.
Country also looks like also some hard time. Country, he no got plenty money. But one thing, kind special day also Easter, and me giving you me long thinking, is that in the midst of many fear, plenty already stop. But one plus something I'm certain, I'm also Papa God, Lord is our country, and me sit down, long see a king blogger yet. 2,000 years ago, I come die long DY Cross, long Calvary. And me get up again, long place mat, win him die, na sick, na pain, na problem. And today, I me stop long heaven.
The Prime Minister further thanked all who have been on the front line to help address the issue. He said they are doing all they can to ensure the country is safe, but the country's security now lies in the hands of the Lord in this trying time.
Our security lies in the hands of the Creator of the universe, the Creator of this planet, and more importantly, Lord and King and Savior of Papua New Guinea, a country that is a Christian country.
According to the Prime Minister, many people have been infected and died from this disease, and it is the people's prayer that has protected the country from the sickness. However, that does not mean the country is immune to the disease. The Prime Minister challenged the people not to take their health for granted this Easter.
And so Papua New Guineans at this Easter time, don't take your health for granted. No can think also you Iron Man or you Iron Mary.
Rayon Lakingu, National MTV News.
This is National MTV News. We'll be back with more after the break. Welcome back to the news. Papua New Guinean teachers have taken to social media to express their frustrations after finding out they have received no salaries during this national state of emergency. A number of teacher forums on social media platforms had various posts regarding non-payments of salaries. When MTV contacted a number of disgruntled teachers, most had shown payslips with only 50 kina credited to their accounts. Another teacher contacted said she had had a deduction of over 500 kina. When asked if there had been any information regarding this from the National Department of Education, all had stated that no directives or information had been forthwith. Schools around the country remain closed until April the 27th as part of the national emergency measures during the current state of emergency. Police in NCD and Central Province are doing all they can to ensure people follow the restrictions put in place by the SOE controller. Assistant Commissioner NCD and Central, Anthony Wagambe Jr., said though there are restrictions to people's freedom of movement, they must adhere to these instructions. He said this is to ensure people are safe and not at risk of contracting COVID-19.
Since the announcement of the state of emergency in the country, police in NCD and Central have been conducting operations in their respective commands to ensure restrictions imposed by the SOE controller are being followed. This includes roadblocks along the highway to monitor public movements. ACP NCD and Central Anthony Wagambi Jr. says, though the SOE has put a stop to certain individual rights, it is a serious issue and the police must do it.
We have been able to enforce the restrictions which have been ordered by the controller of the state of emergency. I must remind everybody that the controller does not make decisions on his own. He seeks clarification and advice, especially from the health department and from other relevant agencies.
The Assistant Commissioner further adding that there will be passes issued to people traveling to Central Province. He said passes will be issued once they are screened and authorized by the Central Provincial Police Commander.
These passes are free of charge. It is our duty to provide. After screening, when we screen people for the reasons to go into Central Province, then the PPC will authorize for those passes to be issued. Likewise, for those, we had a lot of problems with companies operating along the LNG area, along Napa Napa. Those passes are being issued here at Morocco. Those are for the companies and for essential services.
However, there have been complaints of police misconduct and extortion by police at roadblocks. Wagambi says members from the Internal Investigation Unit will be assigned to respective roadblocks to ensure things are done correctly. He is also appealing to people to report cases of police misconduct.
We are encouraging people to come forward. If there's any misconduct by our personnel at the roadblocks, especially with complaints, allegations of extortion or receiving fees.
In implementing the boy ban in the city, the police are also clamping down on the buying and selling of the nut within city limits. However, there have been reports of police officers selling betel nut at police barracks. The Assistant Commissioner said police officers found to be selling boy at police barracks will be suspended and charged. So far, 2 police officers have been suspended and charged.
I will not deny, I will admit that it's been happening, and we are looking into it and we will deal with them. There's already been 2 commissioned officers, ranking officers, who have been suspended in relation to betel nut ban. They have been suspended and they will be dealt with after investigation. But they have been stood out from duties and others will follow as well.
ACP Wagambi is also calling on all citizens to follow instructions set by the SOE controller. He said the country does not have enough facilities to cater for all COVID-19 patients, and the only way to avoid contracting the virus is to adhere to simple instructions. Rayon Lakingu, National EMTV News.
West New Britain Governor Francis Maneke says the provincial COVID-19 task force team is making progress. Governor Maneke says through the Provincial Health Authority, police and other frontline agencies will be supported to control people's movements as it shares borders with East New Britain. Maneke emphasized that appropriate funding is needed to build isolation facilities, increase capacity of PPEs and make rational decisions through levels of government to identify and stop the spread of COVID-19.
Minimal resource that we have, we will have to try to at least see how we can maximize having to establish a very important controls in regard to this very important virus now declared in the country. But so far so good. But there were already the big things are now close to our province. We seriously have to see how best we attend to defending our province. And it comes back to the provincial controller.
The Morobe COVID-19 Response Committee is now utilizing churches to disseminate awareness messages. The committee yesterday facilitated awareness training for church leaders in Ley. The training was mainly focused on preventative measures.
These church leaders in Ley are being trained by the health workers from the COVID-19 response team to disseminate information to their congregations. With a second confirmed COVID-19 case in the country, the committee is now stressing more on awareness and is utilizing all means to spread these messages. Training facilitator Sister Patricia Gahanao from the Morobe PHA stressed on basic preventative measures like avoiding crowds and frequently washing hands.
When I'm sick coronavirus, how about manikisim, em kama pol semonem how by suppose mani kisim by go well lo manem lausik na how by prevent mem or family blangem na or house line blangem lo kisi dista sick and me plug can bring him now long explain him or give him long church leader so lo kisi mouse blo me play because me play health planty line population blo me big plan.
Churches in the city stopped gathering since the beginning of the lockdown period last week. This has continued to date. However, there has not been any coordination at the provincial level between the various churches on the COVID-19 situation. This week, the Deputy SOE Controller Peter Guinness and lay MP John Rosso met with church leaders in the city. Bishop Rosario of the Catholic Diocese in Lay said this is now an opportunity for churches to work together in support of the committee.
So this is an opportunity also for us when people gather to give this awareness to them. Because at this time, we see, in spite of declaring state of emergency, people have not taken it seriously. So one of the things is that they do not know about it. So the best thing, the important thing, that we have to give awareness.
Churches in the city have been allowed to resume. However, they are urged to practice basic prevention measures and stick to a maximum of 50 people. The church leaders will start doing awareness this weekend after the training and will be provided awareness pamphlets and other necessities. Charlene Airy, National EMTV News, Lay.
Comrade Trustee Services Limited, or CTSL, has announced a 6.5% interest credit for its members. This announcement was made yesterday by CTSL Chief Executive Officer Charlie Ngilichibi.
Comrade Trustee Services Limited is the trustee for the Defence Force Retirement Benefit Fund. It has more than 3,000 contributors and 1,700 pensioners. It aims to provide retirement benefits to members and their dependents and also provide easy access to retirement savings for housing-related purposes. Despite facing a challenging year with the Bank of PNG's intervention in the removal of the board and the appointment of the statutory manager, CTSL managed to develop a number of strategies which resulted in the achievement of the 6.5% interest. CEO Charlie Ngilichibi says at this time of the global pandemic, the country's economy will be greatly affected. Therefore, CTSL has established approaches to assist its members.
We will try and do everything this year, and with the support of the Major General and Chief of Staff and all the soldiers, to make sure that we cushion your fund. The worst thing we don't want to happen is declare a negative crediting rate, because what that means is there will be a write-down on member funds. If this COVID-19 issue carries on from January 2020 up until December 2020, more negative things will happen around the world, and in PNG we won't be spared.
Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
For this next story, we advise viewer discretion is advised. A man in his early 30s was killed and his corpse dumped along Port Moresby's Cora Way. Residents reported the matter to police before a St. John ambulance was called to retrieve the body. The victim was severely hit with a piece of metal and rocks. Locals believe the man was killed by a mob as his belongings were missing along with his shoes. Police are urging city residents to identify the victim and make contact with authorities. The victim is an employee of a construction company. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll bring you news making headlines overseas. Welcome back to Thursday's news. Religious leaders around the world say today marks the biggest disruption to Good Friday service in modern history. Millions around the world are being unable to properly mark one of the most significant days in the Christian calendar. But these challenging times are bringing change.
Staying in their bubble while spreading the word.
Every Good Friday, we listen to the account from St. John's Gospel.
Our bubble is quite a big bubble. There are 7 of us who live in the cathedral presbytery.
This group of Christchurch priests, seminarians and trainees live together and deliver sermons online together. Some even roped in as tech support.
It was a hard job for me because I'm a learner and sometimes I make mistakes too.
With churches shut today, online liturgies were broadcast in multiple languages. From the comfort of bubbles across the country, reflecting the huge importance of Good Friday.
Easter is in fact the greatest occasion. Christmas is actually only the beginnings of the steps towards Easter.
The lockdown proving even more disruptive to services than the February 2011 earthquake, where gatherings could at least be held outdoors.
I think young or old, what we're missing is the physical contact of being together in the same building.
But some say this is an opportunity to modernise, with more traditional religious institutions embracing technology more than ever.
Almost every church has produced some kind of online event or online service, and I think that's got to be for the good.
And a chance to learn too, the lockdown reflecting the Good Friday story, hard times now for the greater good of all in the future.
But the challenge for us is, can we be loving in our behaviour? And I think it is a loving thing to have this constraint at this time in order to stop the spread of the virus.
Keeping safe, something we can all embrace, regardless of religion.
And I apologize, it's Friday. Many of us have said we never even heard of the term coronavirus at the beginning of the year, but just 100 days later, the renamed COVID-19 has swept across the globe, taking lives and livelihoods. One News looks at how we got to this point.
As the world entered 2020, few would have guessed we'd be facing the biggest health crisis in a generation. It started here, Wuhan, China.
But we begin tonight with the growing concern as the toll from that deadly coronavirus now grows.
It has not yet become a global health emergency. It may yet become one.
While the World Health Organization tried to understand more about the respiratory illness, hospitals in China were swamped.
The hospital staff just told them that they could not perform the tests. I think it's because of a capacity issue.
But China would be just the beginning. Cases spiking in South Korea, Iran and Japan, even those at sea not immune.
And another biggest fear is that if one of us has been diagnosed virus and they might be separate us.
The Diamond Princess cruise ship becoming one of the biggest clusters of the newly named COVID-19. 4 New Zealanders eventually falling ill. Just weeks later, a global pandemic declared.
Europe has now become the epicenter of the pandemic.
Whole towns in Italy went into lockdown, leaving tourists stranded.
But the way the airports are starting to restrict their flights and the borders are closing down, who knows how and when we'll get home.
France even converted the world's largest wholesale food market, south of Paris, into a temporary morgue. The grim scenes in Europe forcing US President Donald Trump's hand.
We will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
World markets feeling the uncertainty too. As lockdown measures were lifted in Wuhan, they were brought in elsewhere.
I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
We will move to level 4. These decisions will place the most significant restrictions on New Zealanders' movements in modern history.
The world watching on with deja vu.
Breaking news tonight, coronavirus cases surging to over 1 million worldwide. And the staggering toll, roughly 1,000 people now dying per day in the US.
But amongst the death and disruption, gratitude for those working on the front lines in these extraordinary times.
Kiwi paramedic Chaz Valenta, who's on the front line of the coronavirus fight in New York, said since the situation is deteriorating there with 799 deaths in the last 24 hours, that's the highest daily toll for a single state so far. Ms. Valenta spoke to One News about what she has seen and why she refuses to go home.
I had a woman who asked me please to not let her family member go to one of the refrigerated trucks. You're now encountering someone's mother saying, "That's my only son, you have to try again." You have no answers for these people.
The city of dreams turned stuff of nightmares.
I am scared.
Shaverlinda's taken care of people in New York for 16 years. Now, her fellow carers are dying.
I was advised yesterday of a friend in the emergency room that I frequent that passed away. Doctors, nurses that I know. It's becoming more and more commonplace to hear the news of someone that you know, that you were friends with, that has ultimately succumbed to this illness.
We met this proud West Aucklander last week, a paramedic in America's worst hit city.
You do have the exposure to things that are not very pleasant.
Where the blows are getting harder.
We are not exposed to it anymore. We're saturated with it.
And harder.
We've seen about a 400% surge in decedents, so people that are passing away at home. We have seen a large spike in cardiac arrest in the out-of-hospital field. So as far as I'm aware, those numbers are not being counted in the New York State totals.
People know the toll's growing. You can see it in every church turned into a field hospital. Every truck now a makeshift morgue.
It's very scary to see that this picks one person and then doesn't pick another, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. And understanding that inherently, maybe one day soon it's going to pick me.
But she won't be coming home.
How do you reconcile running out on one family to go home to another one? And that's something that I can't do. My love of people is stronger than my fear of this virus.
And what of their love for her? Every night at 7 p.m. across New York City, applause rings out for her sacrifice and those of her colleagues.
I don't think I've eaten a meal that I cooked or that I bought inside of 2 weeks because the community support.
Heartening moments for New York's healthcare heroes when they need it most.
The United States is seeing a huge increase in its unemployment levels. 16 million Americans have registered for benefits in the last 3 weeks alone. The staggering number of jobs has underlined the bleak global economic outlook.
Across America, the lines tell a story of hardship. In San Diego, a new drive-through for food parcels.
And right now with a very high-risk pregnancy, it really helps a lot.
It's getting worse because you go to the supermarkets and things are getting, you don't see nothing, the shelves are empty.
Food banks struggling to keep up with demand too.
I am so thankful to every person that's got out of their house, came out of their house and donated one box of cereal for another family to be able to eat.
The numbers of newly unemployed staggering, nearly 17 million in the last 3 weeks.
Just unheard of. So this is 10 times worse than we've seen in a generation.
Concern about those waiting for already announced stimulus packages.
Gig workers, people who might drive for a ride-sharing service. In practice, those people are going to have to wait hopefully just a few more weeks, but maybe much longer to get their benefits. They're going to pay a price.
The president saying more help is on the way.
The Federal Reserve announced this morning that it will provide up to $2.3 trillion in support to businesses, states, and local governments.
The International Monetary Fund blunt. The world is facing a crisis not seen since the Great Depression. It's readying to deploy a war chest of $1.5 trillion. The EU diving into recession, now stressing European unity as it readies to inject cash.
Today we agreed 3 safety nets and a plan for the recovery to ensure we grow together and not apart once the virus is behind us.
In Britain, the wheels of industry stalling.
No time at all, it hit Europe and doof. So suddenly Europe just dropped down, 30% of our sales potential just went overnight.
Estimates that by June, its economy could shrink by 14%. A rising tide of uncertainty as the world goes quiet.
You're watching Friday's news. Trukai Sports is up next. Godwin, what's happening on the sports front?
Thanks, Jeremy. Now, coming up after the break, NRL announces a resumption of competition and Raymond Gunemba speaks about rumours of a new club being formed. Stay tuned for the details.
True Kai Sports.
Welcome to True Kai Sports. NRL Australia is looking to resume its competitions come May the 28th, but there are still questions raised if it is safe for the players. Former NRL coach and player Matthew Elliott says not only is it good for entertainment for those who love rugby league, but having the games back on is only calling for other sporting codes to also come out and talk about their codes respectively. Meanwhile, here in PNG RFL, since the suspension of all its competitions, has stated that it will resume all its events, including the National Rugby League competition, on June the 6th. The Australian Rugby League Commission announced that NRL is planning to restart its competitions on May 28. In making the announcement, NRL reiterated that the grand final would remain in its traditional format of one match played in Sydney. The NRL's Innovations Committee and the Australian Rugby League Commission each that met on Thursday to discuss rescheduling the season due to the interruption brought about last month by the coronavirus pandemic.
There's going to be curveballs that have to be encountered during this process. I don't think they're going to have people test positive. I think that they're going to be highly diligent going through that. Maybe that's me being unrealistic or too optimistic, but I think that that's something that they'll be quite diligent around. Will the competition be fair? No, it'll just be different.
Elliott says it's an opportunity for sports fans to be entertained.
No, it'll just be different, but what we'll do is hopefully get the opportunity for sports fans and particularly rugby league fans to get out there and just have that couple of hours of distraction and scream at the TV and punch the air.
Meanwhile, PNG RFL, since cancelling all its rugby league competitions, it is expected to see the games resume on June 6th, including the National Rugby League competition.
As the national sport that brings together a lot of our people, we feel we have a responsibility to ensure that we undertake these measures to protect our players and our partners and our fans from the risks of acquiring and actually spreading the virus. So, yes, consideration has been placed on the risk to the competition. We know that to get the competition started again is going to take especially the franchises, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks of pre-season work to get the start. That's why we are giving a definitive date. Tentatively, competition Digital Cup is expected to kick off on June the 6th. That's the weekend we're working together. If the situation changes, we will make the appropriate decisions then. But tentatively, all rugby league programs scheduled to start back on June the 6th. But that's depending on the rapidly changing circumstances with the virus on the national and international scene.
PNG RFL says despite the selection of the date of which the games are to resume, it is still indefinite. Former Lae City captain and PNG striker Raymond Gunemba has responded to recent media reports flagging the formation of a new franchise next season. He has denied that there will be a new club being formed and is currently in the process of researching Lae City Dwellers' ownership.
We, the management and players of Lae City Dwellers, will seek legal clarification to how Lae City FC was registered with IPA, whom Lae Biscuit Company accepted to sponsor Lae City Dwellers in 2018. Lae City Dwellers is registered with IPA as an sports entity which remains today. Peter Gunemba, Peter Dabineba, Ronald Ram, John Gulubau has never authorized or agreed with Ian Chow or Lae Biscuit Company to change the name for Lae City Dwellers to Toti City or Lae City FC. We never learned of Lae City FC registered as a different team till when we defected last month. We will also seek PNGFA, OFC and FIFA clarification.
True Kai Sports continues after the break with more. Stay tuned.
True Kai Sports.
Welcome back to True Kai Sports. English Premier League footballers have banded together under a collective called Players Together to support those directly involved in the COVID-19 crisis.
Liverpool captain Jordan Henderson, about 150 players have signed up to get funds to those in need, including National Health Service staff, volunteers and COVID-19 patients.
I think it shows we are united as one, really, and this is a great chance, a great opportunity for the players to show how much the NHS means to us.
Premier League footballers were heavily criticised by the UK's Health Secretary Matt Hancock last week for not taking pay cuts. Henderson's initiative earning his support today, as well as Southampton, who became the first EPL club to agree to pay cuts.
And that's how it is in Trukai Sports this evening. Jeremy will be back with the weather details for the next 24 hours after these messages.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
Weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region: Port Moresby, mostly fine, then possible afternoon showers developing.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And that's the news, sport and weather for today, Friday the 10th of April 2020. Straight up after the news, you can catch the full version of Prime Minister James Marape's Easter message to the country. On behalf of the entire EMTV news team around the country, stay safe, practice social distancing and stay healthy.